The morning sun cast long shadows across the testing hangar of Skyward Aviation, one of the most prestigious aerospace companies in the country. The air smelled of jet fuel and metal, the scent of ambition and innovation mixed together. Inside the massive facility, a woman in an expensive burgundy suit walked with purpose across the polished concrete floor. Her name was Victoria Chen, 32 years old, and she was the youngest CEO in the company's 40-year history. She had inherited Skyward Aviation from her father just 18 months ago, and she was determined to prove she deserved the position. Victoria's designer. Heels clicked rhythmically as she approached the centerpiece of the hangar, a sleek black helicopter that represented 3 years of development and $25 million in investment. The Phoenix X7. It was supposed to be revolutionary, incorporating artificial intelligence, navigation systems that could predict weather patterns and adjust flight paths automatically. Behind her, a group of engineers followed nervously. They carried tablets and folders, their faces showing a mixture of pride and anxiety. Today was supposed to be the final test flight, before the big unveiling to potential military buyers next week. But there was one significant problem. Nobody wanted to fly it. Near the back of the hangar, a man in a dark blue maintenance uniform pushed a cleaning cart. His name was Daniel Cole, though most people just called him Dan, if they called him anything at all. He was 38 years old, with short dark hair starting to show gray at the temples. His uniform was always clean, his work always thorough. Daniel had worked at Skyward Aviation for 7 months. He arrived every morning at 5:30, before most employees showed up. He cleaned the offices, emptied trash bins, mopped floors, and washed windows. He did his job quietly and efficiently, the way he had been trained to do everything in his life. Most people never really looked at him. He was part of the background, invisible in the way service workers often are. They saw the uniform, not the man wearing it. What they did not know, what nobody at Skyward Aviation knew, was that Daniel Cole had spent 15 years in the Army. He had been a chief warrant officer, a master helicopter pilot, who had flown over 3,000 hours in some of the most dangerous conditions imaginable. He had flown rescue missions in mountains, out during storms. He had evacuated wounded soldiers under enemy fire. He had trained other pilots, teaching them how to stay calm when everything was going wrong. He had medals in a box at home, commendations he never looked at anymore, but that was before the mission that ended his military career. Before the crash that left him with chronic pain in his back and a medical discharge. Before he came home to find his wife had left, unable to handle the long deployments and the changed man who came back from them. Now he had his daughter, Sophie, who was 10 years old. She lived with him in a small apartment across town. She had his dark hair and her mother's green eyes. And she was the only thing that mattered anymore. Every morning before school, Sophie would make him promise to stay safe. Every evening, she would ask about his day, genuinely interested in even the boring details. She never complained about their small apartment or their tight budget. She just loved him, completely and unconditionally. Daniel kept his military ID in his wallet, tucked behind his driver's license. He looked at it sometimes, late at night when Sophie was asleep, remembering a version of himself that felt capable and strong. Now he felt invisible, but invisible was safe. Invisible meant steady employment, health insurance, and the ability to provide for his daughter. He had learned not to expect more than that. Victoria Chen stood in front of her engineering team with her arms crossed, her expression showing barely controlled frustration. Behind her, the Phoenix X7 sat silent and imposing, waiting for someone brave enough to test it. "Let me make sure I understand the situation correctly," Victoria said, her voice carrying across the hangar. "We have investors arriving in 6 days. We have military representatives flying in from 3 different countries. We have media coverage scheduled. And nobody, Not one person on this team is willing to test fly this aircraft. The engineers shifted uncomfortably. A man named Robert, who was the lead design engineer, cleared his throat nervously. "Miss Chen, with all respect, we are engineers, not pilots. The AI navigation system is completely new technology. If something malfunctions at altitude, the manual controls might not respond quickly enough. We need a professional test pilot, someone with extensive experience." "We do not have time to hire an outside pilot," Victoria snapped. "The vetting process alone would take weeks. Background checks, security clearance, training on our specific systems. We need someone now. Perhaps we could delay the demonstration." Another engineer suggested quietly. Victoria turned to him with an expression that could freeze water. "Delay? Do you understand what that would cost us? We have competitors breathing down our necks. If we show weakness now, if we admit we are not ready, we lose credibility. We lose contracts. We lose everything my father spent decades building." Silence fell over the group. Nobody made eye contact with her. Daniel was nearby, wiping down the windows of the observation room. He could hear every word. He had seen this kind of situation before in the military. Fear disguised as caution. Leaders who thought authority could replace skill. It never ended well. He glanced at the Phoenix X-7 from where he stood. He could see the rotor system, the stabilizer configuration, the weight distribution. Whoever designed this helicopter knew what they were doing. The engineering was solid, elegant even. This was not a dangerous aircraft. It was beautiful. But nobody in that room trusted it enough to fly it. And that told Daniel everything he needed to know about the culture here. These people did not trust their own work. They did not trust each other. And they definitely did not trust Victoria. She paced in front of them like a caged animal. Somebody in this building must have basic flight training. Somebody must have enough courage to test what we built. Daniel continued his work, staying quiet. This was not his problem. He had learned to keep his head down to stay in his lane. Getting involved only led to complications, but watching that beautiful machine sit, unused, bothered him more than he wanted to admit. It was like seeing a thoroughbred horse locked in a stable, never allowed to run. Victoria's voice grew louder with frustration. "We have 200 employees in this facility. Engineers, technicians, administrative staff. Are you telling me that nobody, not one single person, has the skills or courage to help us?" Without thinking, Daniel spoke. His voice was calm and measured, cutting through the tension. "Maybe the problem is not finding someone who can fly. Maybe the problem is that you are not looking in the right places." Everyone turned to stare at him. The engineers looked confused. Victoria looked like someone had just insulted her at a formal dinner party. "Excuse me?" Her voice was sharp as broken glass. Daniel set down his cleaning supplies and walked closer, moving slowly and deliberately. Years of military training had taught him how to diffuse tense situations. Stay calm. Stay respectful. Never show fear. "You said you need someone who can fly," Daniel continued. "But you are only asking engineers. Maybe you need to ask different questions." One of the younger engineers laughed nervously. "Is the janitor seriously giving us advice right now?" More laughter rippled through the group. Someone muttered something about staying in your lane. Robert shook his head with an embarrassed smile, like he was watching someone humiliate themselves at a party. Victoria stepped closer to Daniel, studying him with a mixture of curiosity and condescension. She was tall, especially in her heels, almost at eye level with him. Her perfume was expensive, her confidence absolute. "Let me understand this," she said slowly, as if speaking to a child. "You think you know better than my team of engineers. You, who cleans floors for a living." "I did not say that," Daniel replied evenly. "I just said you might be making assumptions about who can help you. Victoria tilted her head, and a smile played at the corner of her mouth. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who had just found unexpected entertainment. "You know what?" she said loud enough for everyone to hear. "I am feeling generous today. Let me make you an offer." She gestured dramatically toward the Phoenix X-7. "Fly that helicopter successfully. Just one clean flight around the facility, and I will marry you." The hangar erupted in laughter. Real laughter this time, not nervous chuckles. Someone pulled out their phone and started recording. This was going to be the best break room story in company history. "Oh my goodness," someone whispered. "This is amazing." Robert was laughing so hard he had to wipe his eyes. "Miss Chen, we should not waste time on this," Victoria said, her eyes never leaving Daniel. "I want to see this. Our janitor thinks he knows better than trained engineers. Let him prove it." She crossed her arms, waiting. "Well, you seemed confident a moment ago. Was that just talk?" Daniel looked at her for a long moment. His face showed nothing. No anger, no embarrassment, no fear. Just that same calm expression he always wore. The one he had perfected over years of dangerous missions where panic got people killed. Then he smiled. A real smile, the kind that touched his eyes. "Okay, I accept." The laughter stopped abruptly. Victoria's smile faltered for just a second. She had expected him to back down, to realize his mistake and apologize. His acceptance changed everything. "Wait," Robert said, stepping forward. "Miss Chen, we cannot actually let him do this. The liability alone, if he crashes a $25 million aircraft, why not?" Victoria interrupted. She was committed now, playing to the crowd of engineers and technicians who had gathered to watch. He accepted the terms. "Let us see if our janitor has hidden talents." She gestured toward the helicopter. "Go ahead. Show us what you can do." Daniel walked toward the Phoenix X-7. The crowd followed, still chuckling but also curious now. Someone muttered that they should call security before this got out of hand. Another person said they should at least make him sign a waiver. But Victoria held up her hand. "No, I want to see this. I want to watch him try." Daniel circled the helicopter slowly, running his hand along the fuselage. He checked the rotor blades, examining the pitch control mechanisms. He looked at the tail rotor, the landing skids, the external fuel tanks. His movements were methodical and professional. Not the uncertain fumbling of someone who had no idea what they were doing. A few people in the crowd started to look uncomfortable. The laughter was dying down, replaced by an uneasy silence. Daniel opened the cockpit door and climbed in. The seat adjusted to his weight. The harness clicked into place with practiced efficiency. He put on the headset and his hands moved across the control panel with surprising confidence. "Wait," one engineer said nervously. "He is actually starting the engine." Switches flipped. Systems hummed to life. The instrument panel lit up in sequence exactly the way it was designed to. The startup procedure was perfect, textbook even. Robert's eyes went wide. How does he know the startup sequence? That information is restricted. Victoria stood frozen, watching. Her arms were still crossed, but her expression had shifted from amusement to something closer to confusion. Phone cameras pointed at the helicopter from multiple angles. This was going to be viral content, one way or another. The turbine engine began to whine, building in pitch. The main rotor started to turn, slowly at first, then faster. The downwash created by the spinning blades sent papers flying across the hangar floor. Several people stepped back instinctively. "He is actually going to fly it," someone whispered in disbelief. The Phoenix X-7 lifted off the ground. 6 inches. 1 foot. 3 feet. Then it rose smoothly into the air, rotating gently as it climbed. The movement was controlled and precise, not the jerky, uncertain motions of someone unfamiliar with the controls. Daniel took the helicopter higher. 50 feet, then 80 feet. The massive hangar doors had been opened earlier for ventilation, and he guided the aircraft through them, into the open air outside. What happened next left everyone speechless. The Phoenix X-7 banked hard to the left in a tactical maneuver that only military pilots practiced. Then it rolled through a series of coordinated turns that demonstrated complete mastery of the aircraft. Daniel brought it low over the tarmac, maybe 15 feet off the ground, then pulled up sharply in a move that made several engineers gasp out loud. "That is a combat evasion maneuver," Robert breathed. Where did he learn that? The helicopter performed a figure-8 pattern that showed off its agility, then executed a auto-rotation descent that tested the emergency landing capabilities. Every movement was deliberate, professional, perfect. Victoria's face had gone completely pale. Her mouth was slightly open. She looked like someone had just pulled the ground out from under her feet. Daniel brought the Phoenix X-7 back through the hangar doors and set it down exactly where it had been parked. The landing was so gentle that the skids barely made a sound against the concrete. The engine powered down smoothly, the rotors gradually slowing. Complete silence filled the entire facility. Nobody laughed now. Nobody moved. They just stared as Daniel removed his headset and climbed out of the cockpit. He walked toward Victoria with the same calm expression he had worn the entire time. His hands relaxed at his sides. He stopped a few feet away from her. Was that acceptable? Victoria could not speak. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Behind her, the engineers looked at each other in shock, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. Daniel reached into his back pocket and pulled out his worn leather wallet. The leather was cracked with age, the edges soft from years of handling. He opened it carefully and removed a laminated card, yellowed with time, but still perfectly readable. He held it up so Victoria could see it. The words were clear. Chief Warrant Officer for Daniel Cole, Master Army Aviator, United States Army. Victoria took the card with shaking hands. Her eyes scanned the text once, then twice, then a third time, as if reading it again would make it say something different. "Master Army Aviator," Robert said from behind her, his voice filled with awe. "That is the highest rank for Army helicopter pilots. You need at least 10 years of flight experience just to qualify." Victoria looked up at Daniel, her face showing a dozen emotions at once. Shock, embarrassment, disbelief, something that looked almost like pain. "You are a master pilot. You have been here for 7 months. Why did you never say anything? Why did you let us think you never asked?" Daniel said simply. "I applied for a maintenance position. You hired me for maintenance. I have been doing my job, but why?" Victoria's voice cracked slightly. "Why are you working as a janitor? You could be flying for airlines, for private companies, for anyone. Why are you here cleaning floors?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was distant, like he was seeing something far away. "I was medically discharged 3 years ago. Training accident, spinal injury. I am cleared to fly, but the airlines want pilots without medical red flags in their history. Private companies want recent commercial ratings I cannot afford. The military gave me a pension, but it is not enough to support my daughter on its own." He paused, meeting Victoria's eyes directly. "Your company posted a job opening. It offered health insurance and steady hours. I have a 10-year-old daughter who needs stability. So I applied, and you hired me. I have been grateful for the work." Words landed like physical blows. Victoria's hand went to her mouth. Tears formed in her eyes, though she tried to blink them away. "We walked past you every day," she whispered. "I walked past you every day." "Yes," Daniel acknowledged. "You did." One of the engineers who had laughed earlier stepped forward, his face red with shame. "Sir, I apologize. We had no idea. We did not know who you were." Daniel turned to face him. His voice was level, but there was steel underneath the calm. "You did not know I was a pilot. That is true. But you knew I was a person. You laughed anyway. That tells me something about character that has nothing to do with my qualifications." The engineer looked down. Unable to meet Daniel's eyes, Victoria found her voice again, though it came out smaller than before. "The Phoenix X7, you flew it perfectly. Those maneuvers, they were not just basic flight patterns. You were testing it, testing the limits." "Yes," Daniel confirmed. "I have been cleaning this helicopter for 7 months. I read the engineering specifications during my breaks. I studied the manual. I saw good work, intelligent design. I wanted to see if it flew as well as it looked on paper. And?" Victoria asked. "It is an exceptional aircraft," Daniel said. "The AI navigation system works exactly as designed. The manual controls are responsive and intuitive. The weight distribution is perfect. This helicopter is ready for production. You just needed someone willing to trust your team's work." Victoria stared at him for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice had changed, softer and more genuine. "We need you, not as a janitor. As our chief test pilot. As a consultant on our training programs. Name your price." Daniel shook his head slowly. "I appreciate the offer, but I need to think about Sophie, my daughter. I need consistent hours, weekday schedules, so I can be there when she gets home from school. I cannot go back to the kind of life where work comes first and family comes second." "Whatever you need," Victoria said quickly. "Flexible hours. Work from home options when possible. We will build the position around your life, not the other way around. Please, she caught herself. "We need someone who can do what you just did. But more than that, I need to learn from someone who understands what I clearly do not." Daniel studied her face, seeing something genuine there now, something humble. Maybe she could change. Maybe they all could. "I will think about it," he said finally. "I need to talk to Sophie first. Make sure she is comfortable with any changes." Victoria nodded, relief visible on her face. "Of course. Take whatever time you need." Daniel started to walk toward the exit. The crowd parted silently to let him through. Just before he reached the door, he turned back to face Victoria one more time. "Miss Chen, about that marriage proposal." Victoria's breath caught. Her eyes went wide. Daniel smiled, a genuine warm smile that reached his eyes. "I think we should start with coffee. Get to know each other as people first. Maybe learn each other's names before making big decisions." Then he was gone, leaving a room full of stunned employees and one CEO who was questioning everything she thought she knew about leadership, respect, and the value of seeing people for who they really are. The video spread across the internet like wildfire. Someone had recorded the entire encounter, and by evening, it had 15 million views. By the next morning, it was international news. Victoria watched the comments flood in, each one a mirror reflecting her mistakes. The public was merciless, and rightfully so. But instead of hiding, she recorded a response video with no makeup, no script, just honesty. "I was wrong," she said simply. "I judged someone by their uniform instead of their character. That changes now." She implemented immediate reforms at Skyward Aviation. Wages increased for all service staff. Quarterly meetings were scheduled so management could hear from every employee. A scholarship program was created for additional training. Daniel accepted the position as chief test pilot, but only after Sophie gave her approval. His first day back in a flight suit, the entire company gave him a standing ovation. He looked uncomfortable with the attention, but Sophie, sitting beside him, beamed with pride. 3 months later, the Phoenix X-7 launched successfully. Military contracts were signed. But the real story was not about the helicopter. Victoria and Daniel did have that coffee. Then another. They talked about loss, about rebuilding, about what it means to start over. They learned each other's stories, slowly and carefully. Sophie liked Victoria, especially after Victoria admitted she did not know everything and asked Sophie to teach her about being humble. The viral video became a case study in business schools about leadership and respect. But for Daniel, the lesson was simpler. One evening, standing in the hangar with Sophie, he looked at the Phoenix X-7 and smiled. "I used to think flying made me valuable," he said. "But I learned something cleaning floors. Your worth is not measured by what you do. It is measured by how you treat people when nobody is watching." Sophie hugged him tight. "You taught her that too, Dad, and she was right. Some lessons are worth more than any flight."